Hello friends, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Madhusmita and today's our topic is game theory. What is game theory? Game theory is a theoretical framework for conceiving social situations among competing players. Game theory is a brand of applied mathematical that provides tool for analyzing situations in which parties called players make decisions that are interdependent. So, this is game theory. Now let's see the classification of games. Game can be classified according to certain significant features, the most obvious of which is the number of players. In the game there can be one player, two player, or n number of players. With game is each category having their own distinctive feature. In addition, a player need not to be an individual. It may be a nation also, a corporation also. So there is no need that one person can only participate in this. In games of perfection, information such as chess, each player knows everything about the game at all the time. The player which are playing the game, they know about the game, each and everything about the game. Poker, on the other hand, is an example of a game of imperfect information because player do not know all of this opponent's card. So player in consist some games have completely opposed interest, whereas in variable sums, game theory may also be winner or loser. In a labor management dispute, for example, the two parties certainly have some conflicting interest, but both will benefit if a strike is overt. Finally, a game is said to be a finite when each player have a finite number of options. The number of players is finite and the game cannot go on indefinitely. Chess, checkers, poker and most parlor games are finite. A game can be described in one of three ways: in extensive, normal or characteristics function for form. Sometimes these forms are combined as described in the section. The normal strategy form is primarily used to describe two-person game. In this form, a game is represented by a payoff matrix wherein each row describes the strategy of one player and each column describes the strategy of the other player. The matrix entry at the intersection of each row and column gives the outcome of each player choosing the corresponding strategy. Now, what is one-person game? One-person game is also known as game against nature, which with player only needs to listen available options and then choose the options chanced in is involved. The game might seem to be more complicated. Decisions are still relatively simple. For example, a person decides whether to carry an umbrella, weigh the cost and the benefits of the carrying or not carrying it. While this person may make the wrong decision, that does not exist a conclusion opponent. So this is one person game. Now, what is two-person constant sum game? Game of perfect information. This the simplest game of any real theoretical interest is two-person's constant sum game of perfect information. For example, each includes chess, checkers, and the Japanese game of Go in 1912. The German mathematician Ernest Zermelo proved that such games are strictly determined by making use of all available information. The players can deduct strategies that are optimal, which makes the outcome preordinate strictly determined in chess. For example, exactly one of three outcomes must occur. If the player makes optional choice, white wins. Then black determines which of the three outcomes will occur. So this is two-person constant game. A saddle point in a two-person constant sum game is the outcome that rational player would choose. Its name derived from its being the minimum of a row, that is also the maximum of a column in a payoff matrix to be evaluated shortly, which corresponds to the shape of a saddle. A saddle point always exists in game of perfect information, but may not exist in a game of imperfect information. Third is mixed strategies and the minimax theorem. When saddle point exists, the optimal strategies and outcome can be easily determined, as was just illustrated. However, when there is no saddle point, the calculation is more elaborated. Now is two-person variable sum game. Much of the early work in the game theory was on two-person constant sum games, because they are the easiest to treat mathematically. The players in such games have diagrammatically opposed interests, and there is a consensus about what constitute a solution. Most games that arise in practical, however, are variable sum games. The players have both common and opposed interest. For example, a buyer and a seller are engaged in a variable sum game, and the seller a high one, but both want to make a deal. As are two hostile nations, they may disagree about numerous issues, but both gain if they avoid going too far. Some obvious properties of two-person constant sum games are not valid in variable sum games. In constant sum games, for example, both players cannot gain lose, but they cannot if they are deprived some of their strategies. In variable sum games, however, player may gain if some of their strategies are not longer available. So, what is N games? Theoretically, N-person games in which the players are not allowed to communicate and make binding arrangements are not fundamentally different from two-person non-cooperative games. In the two examples that followed, each involves three players. One look for Nash equilibrium, that is stable outcome from which no player would normally depart, because to do so would be disadvantage. So hope you all understood this game theory. Thank you so much.